to to the second to last workshop of the open day, I believe. Sophie Martin, who is here, she's going to be wrapping up after me. So my name is Molly Sostri, and I am a voice movement therapy practitioner based in Boston, Massachusetts. And I have been involved with VMT for over 20 years. I did my training in 1999 with the founder of the work, Paul Newham, as well as with Anne Brownell and Christine Isherwood, who are both here. Christine just presented right before me. And that training was in London in 1999. And at the time, I was in my early 20s, and I was really doing it just for myself, for my own voice. And I was a singer and a songwriter and a performer, and I was really doing it for my own development and my own exploration. And the way I like to describe the experience was that VMT, my training really burst my voice wide open in multiple ways and parameters. And when I finished my training and left the UK and came back to the States, I wasn't planning on working with people as a practitioner. I thought I was going to be a rock star, and I was going to be too busy, in full disclosure. But as time went on, people around me kept, learning that I had done this training, and there was clearly a lot of interest and appetite and need for this work. So over some time, I realized that this training was too good to waste. And I took a few years to finish my qualification, and I've been working as a practitioner now with individuals and with groups for a little over 10 years now. And like all of us, over the pandemic, this has been online, on Zoom. And I think I speak for all of the practitioners, but certainly the more old school practitioners, that none of us would have even considered doing this work online before the pandemic. And I know that's almost a cliche now with a lot of things, but specifically for something that is so embodied and that is so, about being in the room with someone, possibly even physical contact with the massage and manipulation aspect of this work. It's something that we didn't really even consider. And yet we found ourselves, or I'll speak for myself, I found myself working with individuals on Zoom, and through a transition period, eventually seeing that although some aspects of the work, of course, were diminished, other aspects, there were some silver linings. There were some pros to working on Zoom, which I was interested to discover, and I think which I'm still, probably all of us are still kind of exploring and unpacking. And one of the things that I discovered was that I found myself working with people, including people in different time zones, in different locations, who I, of course, would not have been working with otherwise. I found a lot of my clients really gravitating towards the topic of this workshop, the voice movement journey. I found myself often in a role of witnessing and containing and supporting unguided voice movement journeying of my clients. And this probably was happening even more so than in-person work, though certainly with most workshops, we tend to leave time for voice movement journeying, and I'll explain what that is shortly. But when I saw, when I was planning to present something at the conference, I kind of looked back over the last year and a half, and it seemed like, I should talk about the voice movement journey, because that's what I found myself working with the most during the pandemic. So most of you have been here earlier for previous workshops today. In case you haven't, or even though you have, I just want to say a couple of couple of words about VMT, kind of piggybacking on some of the stuff that Christine was saying. But voice movement therapy is an expressive arts modality, discipline, that looks at the voice as the vehicle for self-expansion, self-exploration, and self-transformation ultimately. And in VMT, we look at the voice as being particularly suited to work on the self and the psyche. And some of the reasons for that are the fact that the voice sits in this locus, this sort of hot spot between a lot of different worlds. Quite physically, we have the voice here kind of between the head, where we might locate our thoughts, our intellect, our cognition, and then down below where we have our heart and our guts, where we might locate our longings, our woundedness, our primal urges and instincts. Here we have the voice kind of between these things. And the voice also sits between another two worlds, which is our inner world of our private thoughts and emotions and the communications we do just with ourselves, with the different parts of ourselves. And then we have the voice acting almost as the bridge to the outside world of communication and discourse and expression. So the voice being kind of at these crossroads means that it can often be a place of tension or conflict. If any of these things are in conflict with each other, the head and the heart, the head and the guts, what we're thinking, what we say, the voice can kind of take a bit of a beating, and it can be a place of tension, restriction. And yet, with voice movement therapy, we see also, because of that hot spot, it can be an amazing source of tremendous freedom and wholeness and connecting of all of these parts, and real feelings of liberation. It's very powerful, incredible work. And the voice movement journey is actually, I would say that it's a bit of a intermediate or even advanced VMT technique. But I wanted to try it with all of you because I know you've likely done some other VMT stuff today, and you've also probably been kind of glued to your screens. So this is going to be a little bit of a chance to kind of step away from the screen and have really get into your own space. So to clarify a little bit about what the voice movement journey is, as I was preparing for this workshop, I found myself really unsure on how to talk about it, because there's an aspect of it that really goes, well, with a lot of this work, but specifically the journey, there's an aspect of it that really goes past language, or goes to pre-language, beyond language, beyond vocabulary. But I pulled out my trusty VMT books, and I said, okay, what did Paul say about the journey? And sure enough, there are great, articulate, inspiring ways to talk about it. So essentially, the voice movement journey is a process where a client or a group of clients move and vocalize in a contained, witnessed space and time, and let whatever arises arise and follow it. So that may feel very, very open-ended and maybe even a little bit daunting. So we'll have a starting place. We'll do some grounding beforehand and some containing. But what you may find is even starting from an easy, effortless, let's say a single tone, and adding just a little movement. It really can be as big as you want or as little, but even just a micro movement. Starting with just simplicity, if you stay with it and if you notice what comes up and if you trust it and interact with it, engage with it through movement and through sound, you may find yourself going on a journey. And in the journey, you may meet parts of yourself that you have not visited in quite some time. You may even find characters that you didn't know that you knew, let alone were a part of you. You may find animals, variety of images may come up, memories. You may get in contact with a younger self, perhaps the toddler or the teenager. You may find yourself experiencing certain moods or certain preoccupations. It's the most it's the VMT practice with the most self-determination of the person doing the work. And in VMT, especially with one-on-one clients, we also do what's called more of a guided voice movement journey. And if we're in the same room with someone on a guided journey, we might actually even physically engage with them if we have permission to do so, with some massage or some manipulation or holding. We may even vocalize with the client, or we may encourage, make suggestions of amplifying a certain movement or a certain sound. But in the unguided, we just hold the space and witness and allow time afterwards for some processing. So that's kind of what I wanted to do today, was to start us all together with some grounding and some containing, and then to give us about 20 minutes on our own to do some journeying. And just to add one more thing, during the pandemic, when I've been doing voice movement journeying, I'm finding that I don't go on a big journey of all sorts of variety of sounds or movement. I'm finding myself being very repetitive. So just saying that anything is allowed here. I found that during my journeying over this last year and a half, it's like I'll do the same movement and the same vocal line again and again and again, because that's what is feeling good, or that's what's soothing to me right now. This is not at all about the entertainment value, the what we look like when we're doing this, or even what we sound like. It's about the feeling and the process of noticing what comes up and engaging with it through voice and sound. And I think perhaps one of the reasons why I found clients so willing to do this is that perhaps there's greater containment being in our space. Though I imagine some of us might feel hindered in our space. I know we're all at different times of day, so perhaps for some of you it's late and you might feel restricted in terms of making very loud sounds, but work with what you've got. And why don't we start with you can do this, you can start standing up, you can start seated, wherever you like. But I want to talk a little bit, Christine touched on the sphere, and the sphere is one of the VMT basics that I think is a good place to start an exploration that is as open as this. So take a moment to close your eyes. If you're seated, feel your sit bones on your chair. If you're standing, feel your feet on the ground. And I want you to Imagine that you are right in the center of a sphere and that this sphere is yours. This is your space. And I don't mean right now, I don't mean the room you're in. This is the space that you carry with you all the time, even when you leave your space. It's the space you're in when you're even interacting with others. And you're right in the center of it. And you may imagine this sphere to be huge, to take up the whole neighborhood. Or you may imagine it to be just as big as the room. Or perhaps it's even really small. There's no right or wrong to this. And you may find even that your sphere may change shape. And perhaps your sphere feels like it's made out of something really porous. Or perhaps it's much more solid. Again, there's no right or wrong, but this is your sphere and this is your container. So in this journey, you are always going to have this container around you, and it's going to support you, even if you move around within it, because perhaps moving to the front of the sphere is going to elicit a different sort of sound than being in the back of your sphere. So again, with perhaps a feeling of this could perhaps feel daunting of the unknown, and I'm sure you've heard us now throughout the day talk about the vocal components, these 10 vocal components. Of course, none of the workshops have had time to delve into all of them, but I'm just going to offer you 2 of them as a potential jumping off place that are very simple, I think, to understand. And so, for example, and that are so rich, that could be days of working on the idea of loudness. So how loud or how not loud a voice is, and that spectrum from very quiet to a medium amount of loudness to very loud, and how it might feel to move around that spectrum. And of course, we also have pitch. So any given voice is going to land somewhere in a pitch range of either really, really high or really, really low, or somewhere in between. And so if you find yourself perhaps getting bored or not feeling inspired, you can play with sliding from low to high, the sort of siren that we did a bit with Trish. So I'm going to also encourage letting it be easy. We don't need to push ourselves. Let your starting place be an easy, effortless sound and an easy, effortless movement contained by your sphere. And I will ring a gentle little bell in 20 minutes, and we can come back and talk about where we went. Take your time coming out of it. Finish up. Transitioning back to the here and now and the verbal. And we have space now for sharing and questions and feedback. So feel free to unmute yourself, or you can use the chat, whatever's more comfortable for you.
I guess I would like to say that today has been an incredibly busy day, and I have managed to see 3 or 4. This was the 4th BMT thing. And during this time, I gave myself full permission to take care of myself. I just, oh my goodness, I'm quieter right now than I've been in quite a while. So this was really a gift. This was such a gift. Thank you so much.
Thank you for sharing, Judith. I think I saw quite a bit of that from multiple people taking that opportunity. Yes.
Hey,
Alicia?
that was beautiful. Thank you for holding space for us. I couldn't be loud, but actually it was a gift to me to be quieter than I might have normally experienced. It was like I could allow just deep, deep, soft sounds instead of what I would have perhaps in another space been more loud about. So that was actually really beautiful to have, to find the gift within the limitations. It's
Yeah.
like sort of feel that the restrictions that are put on us by upbringing, society, our traumas, whatever's happened, partly we put those restrictions on ourselves and we don't find the gifts within that to be able to express in, I can't really share with you exactly what I'm feeling, but I can see that I've restricted myself, let's say. So yeah, thank you. That's very beautiful.
Thanks for sharing. Yeah, it's so, with any of these vocal components, parts of the self, parts of the voice, none of them are by definition positive or negative. And we can have we may have negative or positive associations with one or the other, but that also can evolve over time, over exploration.
I just thought of something that happened, like not towards the end. I've been sitting here like trying to like even think about what happened because I was so in the moment, and I just remembered like I've been learning this song kind of obsessively. It's a very difficult Shanno song, and around the middle, I sort of started making these ornamentation noises that were similar, and I was just like really wanted to sing the song, but I was like singing it so slowly, and like each like change of vowel even giving it its own full attention. Um, and it felt really amazing. And that I've done a few of these sessions with you, and I've done a little bit of this on my own, and I don't know if it's that I'm trying to like avoid having like a song come into it, or it's just like I'm deep in the sort of like improvisational instinctual thing, but it was like I have to get into this melody right now. And it was awesome.
That sounds awesome. And certainly songs may arise. And I love what you did with it also of like inviting it into this different sort of space. That is one of the VMT, tricks or practices is taking a song and deconstructing it in that way, moving with it, rolling around on the floor with it, especially the tricky parts, especially like, oh, here comes that hard note. Well, what if I drop to the floor during it instead of, trying to strain up? And I love what you said about the vowels, just to like taste every vowel. Yeah, that sounds delicious. Thanks for sharing.
Um, I had two. Well, one is I feel like I occupied my home in a particular way, um, which for me is very meaningful in that, my partner moved out last March and my daughter went to college in September. So I'm completely alone in this house, which has its own challenges. And then I realized like I can completely sonically occupy this space in a way that I couldn't do if anybody else could hear me. And I went into every possible vocal dimension, and in ones that it was really interesting. I just basically got possessed, and I feel like I was just on an ayahuasca journey, honestly. Like I was entered by various voices is the only way I can describe it, and songs that kept sort of like putting themselves back in. It was really beautiful, and I realized like I needed complete solitude to feel like I could occupy that space. So it flipped a lot of things. Thank you so much. It's so beautiful. And also, I'm thinking, oh, I could just do this anytime on my own. And of course I could, but I feel you all like holding this possibility, even if we're not in the same physical space. Like it's such a powerful field of everything's possible. So I really appreciate that. Even on Zoom.
Yes. Thank you so much for that.
For me, being 20 minutes being myself, it's very wonderful time. I'm feeling myself and I'm relaxed myself. It's the wonderful. And I'm it's the one way to know myself. I very appreciate it. It's very wonderful training. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you.
I might just say something. Yeah, thank you so much. I just really enjoyed having permission to explore like for 20 whole minutes, like singing and just be really playful with it. I think I went loud and I enjoyed being able to go the suggestion of going between loud and medium and soft. Yeah, just like just really playfully. And yeah, for me it was just, I don't know, I have sung a lot in the past and I've somehow just not for a while. So it was actually just a real gift to spend time again doing that. And yeah, so and in the presence of all of you here as well. Like I agree, it feels special to do this as a group. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you. That's so wonderful to hear because I actually this is my first like workshop with multiple people since the pandemic. I've been very intimidated at the idea of doing a group. I've been doing one-on-ones. Um, and, you know, in a group, there is journeying, and obviously you're hearing the other voices, even if you're having a bit of an individual journey. So this is really excellent feedback to know that people are still able to get into their space. Again, perhaps there's even a bit of an enhancement with it, and that they're not having to navigate other voices, other sounds. So I really appreciate the feedback, and I'm so glad this has been positive for people. The way my training ended, our last module, our last 4 weeks, if I remember clearly, because memory is a funny thing, but I'm set that the way we finished our training was the last 4 weeks, every day for 90 minutes, it was a voice movement journey. That's how the day started, from 9 to 10:30. You know, individual journeys, but there were 10 of us in a big room, and that's how the day was started. Tremendous processing without outside of language. Though sometimes language comes in and songs come in. Songs are certainly allowed in a voice movement journey, but one of my clients, one of my Zoom clients, has used the word metabolize. That there's an aspect of this work that metabolizes stuff, and I love using that. And there's something about the voice movement journey that can really metabolize the stuff of our lives, through you know, nonverbal ways. Well, thank you so much. I think we're probably going to wrap up and give unless anybody else has anything else they want to say, you're welcome to. I'm sticking around for the next workshop, which is Sophie Martin. Looking forward to that.
Here, I'll mention something. You ever, you know, when you drink tea, sometimes they have these little like fortune cookie type things. So this morning I pulled one off and I said, oh, I have to put this by the computer and read it. So it says, personal growth lies within the unknown. Courage permits you to explore this space.
Wow, what kind of tea do you buy?
Isn't that funny?
Mine is never that good.
I know, it was a yogi tea thing, and I'm just like, oh my God.
They've upped their game. Yogi tea has upped their game. That's beautiful. How perfect for this particular workshop too. Thanks for sharing that. All right, well, there's a big comment here that I'm going to read here. Absolutely. Yeah, perhaps hearing the global voice will be our next conference. Thank you so much, everybody. This workshop is over, and we're gonna hand it over to Sophie Martin.